Okay, thank you. Well, what I'm going to try and do is to talk a little bit about the history of Pittards. As you can see, it started in 1826, or thereabouts. And hopefully we're going to carry on going into the future. Whether we will or not, whether we won't, I don't know. I'm hoping so. A couple of comments. I did some observations and when I was doing this work and sort of came up with some observations and some thoughts, which I've put down here, but I've also made some references at the end. Professor Tony Pollington in the summer made reference that the leather industry was the first technological industry known to man. I've always known it as the second oldest profession, and we can talk about the first one maybe in the bar later, for those that can know about that. Anyway, I'm going to have to read a little bit, as it's quite convoluted and things, but these are the happy chappies that started the business back in 1826. Essentially, in the Yeovil area, there was leather making way back earlier than this, mentioned in 1791 in the area of Yeovil. Also glove manufacturing, etc., etc. Records can be found as far back as 1327, which is a long time ago. But in 1825, after the Napoleonic laws were repealed, the importing of foreign gloves into England was allowed again, and possibly that's the reason why Charles Pittard started the business as we know as Pittards now. Or maybe was it the guys that were running the business at the time, because Pittards bought the business basically. They decided that they would get out of the tannery business because maybe with competition coming from overseas, probably wasn't a clever idea to get involved in that anymore. So it took out. Charles decided that he'd step in, so he took over. The tradition of Pittards importing sheepskins began as far back as 1830. And over the following decades, skins predominantly from the Mediterranean based were purchased. This included Italian, Sicilian, Iberian, Spanish, and also skins from Australia and Argentina. And they were buying predominantly these products because they were not the wool sheepskin that we see in the UK typically nowadays, the domestic sheepskin. They were a little more on the hairy side. They look more like a goat. I will show you a few of those a little bit later on. In 1867, Charles died, leaving the business to his son Charles Reeford and his other son Ebenezer, who went off actually to make gloves in the Yeovil area. So 1903, the first Ethiopian hair sheep was used by Pittards. A little later in 1909, Pittards became a private limited company. And a couple of years on, the business passed on to Reeford John. So not really a lot happened really in that sort of stage. What I'm going to try and do is talk about the reasons behind the history and things, because otherwise just talking about the history is going to be a little bit tedious and things. So, what was going on between 1826 and 1920? The roots of the business were in fellmongering and dressing, not dyeing particularly. That came later. It was a good starting position. Little of note occurred during those sort of years, but as the 20th century started, so did the changes. The interest in Ethiopian skins for glove manufacturing was the first change, and was quite a significant change in Pittards' history. Very, very fundamental change, changing the raw material, but it was to prove the basis for the future of Pittards. Probably the reasons behind moving to hair sheep were out of necessity, maybe cost. But I don't believe at that time that Reeford Pittards knew that the fine hair sheepskin that we buy now from Ethiopia typically was going to produce the best, in my opinion, the best, finest gloving leather in the world, because it does, because it's a hair sheep, and that's a difference. The decision to move manufacture also came from moving into finer leathers, and quite probably that was when the fashion took off. I don't know when fashion started, but in the 1920s things became more fashionable. I don't know why. Perhaps somebody else can let us know later. But it would appear that, generally speaking, before the 1920s, things were dull and drab, and around that time things started progressing. Maybe it was the generation of some of the dye stuffs and things nowadays, aniline dye and things, started in around that period. So could have been that. Moving on, this is brush dyeing actually, you don't see that very often. Moving on, in 1923, Douglas, Charles's great-grandson, joined his family. Joined his father, and the workforce went up to about 40. It started around about 10 with the guys that you saw in the previous shot. Towards the end of the 20s, demand was growing for leathers in many colours, again by this fashion, mainly for ladies' gloves, also shoe and handbag leather. The earlier decision to focus on finer leathers using hair sheet, I think, was an important step. And then added to that the purchase of a dye house. And they bought a dye house in 1929, a place called Highfields, which is just around the corner from the original factory. Up until then, all Pittards were doing was fellmongering and dressing leather. So at that point then, we actually have the modern Pittards, if you like. People that do a little bit of fellmongering, and they actually start dyeing products now, and start moving on up the technological chain of manufacturing really nice looking leather. During the Second World War, things progressed, and there was a desire after the First World War. There was a desire to kit our soldiers with more efficient equipment, gloves, all those sorts of things. I think there was a desperate need for improved kit. It might be now actually, but in ski gloves, driver's gauntlets, pilot suits. Air crew, all air crew equipment tend to be made out of leather, because most of the planes around that time were not heated and they were open, and you actually froze in the air, so you had to be protected well. So that was the basis of that. In 1947, the export side reached a massive level, I guess. With the technological advancements that Pittards were coming up with, they were looking at going overseas. In 1955, they saw a significant change in the way Pittards wanted to be seen. What they decided to do was to go direct to market with the first washable glove. So they actually took up advertisement space in ladies' glossies at the time, and they had in-house washing of gloves. To show people that you could actually do that. Now, Pittards did that. It wasn't the manufacturers of the gloves. So this was about the first time that anybody, I guess, in the general public had heard about a tanner's name when it was being forced into the market. Prior to that, it would have been the manufacturers of the gloves, Marks and Spencers and people like that would have been doing that sort of thing. That paid off absolutely massively. And I think Pittards became a brand then, maybe before then Pittards was a tanner in a local small town, but when Pittards' name started going around, it perhaps turned into a brand. Don't know, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. On the back of that success story then, Pittards turned into a public limited company in 1962, and that's when Jon W. Pittard, the last, unfortunately, Pittard to work in Pittards, he joined the company in 1963. In 1964, we started building the oval factory that it is now, just along the A30 down from Sherborne, along from the Sherborne Road where it originated. And that opened up in 1966. Now, slightly, that's the original laboratories that we used in Highfields. One of the things that Pittards pride themselves on is making sure that everything was tested to the nth degree. So as you can see, things we're doing now. That's the importing of the raw material, and here's the washing of the gloves. So you can see the Pittards name, not the current Pittards brand that you see, because they hadn't thought about branding like that originally. They were just interested in selling the gloves and selling the leathers. Well, there's a celebrity there. Who's that then? Any guesses? We're showing her something that they made earlier. That's Barry Singleton. Right then. So, what happened? Why are we doing this now? The 20s saw the fashion develop, and that expansion in the market gave opportunity for Pittards to grow. Pittards bought the dye house, which was a sensible move. And then they carried on with their technological advancements then. They came away from alum tanning, and they turned into chrome tanning, which set the scene really for where we are now, really, to be honest with you. They maximised that to the full. In and around the Second World War, the leather industry became a protected industry, and due to the many uses, I guess, the leather was put to, from carrier pigeon anklets, there's a lot of leather in that, to be honest with you, to oil seals, gloves, boots, general leathers, and also munition cases. And looking into it, I'm surprised how much leather was used, not just our leather, but heavy leathers, and unbelievable covering of tank springs, and you name it. It was recognised in a book in 1946 by a chap called H.A. Marquand, who was the MP. There was an MP, a Secretary of the Overseas Trade at that time, in a book. So, well established then. Pittards was then in a good position and knew about the military buying power, and also quite well entrenched in the purchasing requisition system that the military have. They go out to tenders, they get tenders, and they go. We were well known then, so which is pretty good. Pittards' new technical capability and was leveraged in the marketplace, expanding themselves internationally as they bought this first washable glove. They also had massively busy laboratories in Yeovil, helped to endorse the fact that leather by Pittards was fantastic. It was technically advanced, and that was shored up by the fact the military were using it. At the end of this period, Pittards opened this new modern tannery, and with a view to progress and have a future, with an opportunity to expand on that site as well, which was quite important, which they actually did a bit later on. This is an automated unhairing line, which was used when we were spraying a solution of sulphide and caustic soda, not lime, doing this. So it's a very innovative way of unhairing things. In 1965, the first of a series of significant developments in glove leather technology was introduced to the RAF. This was a perspiration-resistant glove. What you didn't want is our boys flying planes getting a bit sweaty, because I guess in war it would be a bit tricky, and the gloves then being thrown away at the end of the day because they just deteriorate and they get denatured. So they produced a perspiration-resistant glove, which was still being used today actually. They then followed a series of expansions through acquisitions, aside from increasing the factory space in Yeovil. In 1967, a company called J.B. Salomons from London was acquired, was closed, and production moved to Yeovil. There was a small amount of expansion, and that allowed us to perfect glazed kid manufacturing in Yeovil. Hadn't done that before, so we're moving into shoe products and things also, rather than gloving. Pittards were now producing lightweight ladies' shoes, as I say, and clothing leather. Pittards believed that there was an opportunity in these segments over and above the factory capacity in Yeovil, so they started looking further afield. And then in 1971, they bought the Constant Group, which included the company Diverge Mars, which was in Leeds. That brought shoe upper on bovine into the mix, and a little on from there. I think the same year actually, they bought Coonan Brothers, which was in Earthlingborough, and that continued. I think they were also working on grain splits bovine, but also on suede splits as well. A lot of that trade went to Marks and Spencer's and also to Clark's, I believe, as well at the time. So what happened then is we reorganised ourselves. We didn't close those factories, because at the time it was perceived that putting bovine into the sheepskin factory essentially not a clever idea really, but also probably because of the capacity, as I said. Pittards believed that there was an opportunity to make more leather, so they had to have more machinery and more factory sites, so they kept it as it was. In 1974, the new Leeds factory was built, which replaced the Dewsbury Road site, and then by 1975 it was in operation, and the group total employee count was about 862. So from about 10 to 15 people moved up quite rapidly in that sort of period, 1970s, around there. About the same year, they produced WR100, which was a waterproof tannage, which set the scene then for the future of that aspect of glove manufacturing. They went straight to the military, sold that, the military were very interested in it, bought it up, and they carried on developing for the military in that sort of fashion. During the 60s and 70s, I guess a change in the world occurred where I'm assuming, I don't know, individual wealth started to come back. After the war, it was pretty dire. I guess rationing still carried on. But in the 60s and 70s, people started getting a lot more money, a lot more usable income, and perhaps the sport for leisure started then in earnest. And what with the media covering more and more events, people wanted to play golf like so-and-so. They wanted to do, play football like, the success of 1966, I guess, as well. People desperately wanted to play football. So people were interested in spending money on sports goods, gloves, shoes, boots, and that sort of thing. So that progressed. That was a new market, really. I don't think there was a massive market up until then. So an opportunity there. Pittards were already, working well in the performance product, having perspiration-resistant gloves that were waterproof, fitted very, very well with cycling, golfing, you name it. So it's a very, very good, neat fit there. However, in 1979, Margaret Thatcher came to power, and the capitalist theme ran through the following 19 years. Some say it was good, some say it was bad. Being a shareholder and building large conglomerates was all the rage, and if you didn't do it, you're likely to get taken over yourself, and you disappear. So up until that point, Yeovil imported all their own raw material as raw skins. As you saw earlier on, there was bales coming in, and we were taking off the hair, as you saw. The wool was sold, or the hair was sold as a byproduct. Not for composting at the moment, but it could have been, I guess. That was as a result of the change in the law, which came into full effect in 1986. And that could have been catastrophic. Changing your raw material can be absolutely horrendous. But as a result of that, we set up what was called an overseas technical development team, which went over to Ethiopia, into many of the tanneries over there that were actually supplying us with raw material, and helped them produce pickle. Okay? And then we imported all pickle. And I think by about 1992, we had all pickle coming in. There was no raw coming in whatsoever. Now then, what else happened? In 1987, we opened the new Earthlingborough plant, and that was built on the same site as the old Earthlingborough plant, the Kuhn Brothers, and it was state of the art. It was fantastic, and we also bought or merged with the Garner Booth organisation as well, which occurred, as I say, middle to late '87. That merged the 12 companies of that group into the 4 companies of the then Pittard group. We had names mostly gone now, unfortunately: Fletcher Webb, Booth, Whiteburns, Charles Paisley and Sons, Pavlova, Odell, Wilson and Till, Welshpool, Derby Hides and Skins, Kingholm, Atlantic Tanning, Ulster Leather, A.T. Kingswood, and J&T Bevins. All doing a lot of different things. There was trading organisations in their booth. There was also chamois production in there, J.T. Bevins, and also Pavlova. Very, very mixed. Very, very complex. The total employee count reached 2,223 at that point. Very important. So that was the biggest the group got. Okay. What time is it? Well, sorry about that. So, what happened? Well, very interestingly, the first stage of expansion was all about buying something up that we didn't have a capability for, glazed kid production. So we did that, we closed the company, and moved it down in the Yeovil. Smart move. We maximised the utilisation of that factory and got some experience in making some other product. Great. The next step was to move into bovine. Again, very clever move. Expanded their width of knowledge. However, it kept the manufacturing capacity in Leeds and in Earthlingborough. That was sensible. They updated, they improved the factories and replaced the factories essentially, but that gave a good fit. That stayed like that for, like I say, until about '87. At the beginning of the '80s, I think the leather trade was having a fair share of difficulties at that time, and it was in decline. Later on that period, we bought Garner Booth. The resultant complex group, I think, had little strategic fit and wasn't necessarily a clever idea at that point in time. However, it was a critical point in Pittards' history. Should they have merged with with Garner Booth, or should we have been taken over? I don't know. We chose to merge with Garner Booth, and the rest is history, as you say, in a way. Anyway, following 8 years, saw the closure of almost all of these additional companies, sadly, culminating in Pavlova in 1993, J&T Bevins in 1995, although J&T Bevins were taken over by somebody else just recently, at that time. With the shrinking of the group, Pittards Garner plc, as it became known, turned its name back to Pittards plc in about 1993, and that ended an interesting portion of Pittards' history. Whether it was right, whether it was wrong, don't know. At the start of the decade then, Yeovil began modernising its drying methods, including introducing vacuum drying, predominantly Cartigliano machines, I believe, Encoma machines initially, Cartigliano machines afterwards. That took over from cabinet drying and tunnel drying, so we were still investing in plant and machinery to improve things. That's the power plant there for the vacuum dryer. In the early 90s, shoe manufacturing began to move offshore, which caused us some problems. Gloving manufacturing moved offshore in about 1970, and by the time this was going on, we'd covered that because we'd gone overseas with exports, and we were actually quite a strong group with our variation that we had. We had, as I say, bovine, we had shoe and handbags, and we also had the gloves as well. We then started doing more and more on this co-branding thing. Back in '95, as I say, the Pittards went out and started promoting the washable glove. Little after that, probably 1960s, I don't know, around about 1960s, we came out with our logo that you saw earlier on the screen. We then started co-branding as well, which is very important. In 1981, we started with Titleist FootJoy. We produced probably the best golf glove in the world, probably the best golf glove in the world now still, Staysoft, and that's still going. And we carried on doing that sort of development. We joined up with Franklin and co-branded probably at the time the first baseball glove that's had a digital print on it, and now that's been copied all around the world. But we were first to do that. We carried on with other people, Nike, Pearl Izumi, Marmot, Cabela's, Spalding, Merrill. Some brand names you know, some brand names you don't. But that was a fundamental point in our history. We wanted to do co-branding. It's almost similar to DuPont doing Teflon and Lycra. We wanted people to talk about Pittards as being a component part of the product, not, oh, it's been made in England by some gloving manufacturer. We wanted our name to be swing tagged with that final article, and that's carrying on now as we speak. Not as I guess as successful as people like DuPont with Lycra and Teflon and the other ones, but nonetheless, for us it was the way we wanted to be. As I say, in 1995 we invested heavily into automated equipment for die housing. The die house, probably at the time, stolen technology, mind you, from the textile industry, as Walter suggested. Probably the most advanced die house certainly in the UK, probably at that time. I might be wrong. We also went into and achieved ISO 14001 and ISO 9002, sorry, in and around that year, 1995, 1997, around that year. We then changed philosophies in both Leeds and Yeovil plants, and we introduced Japanese styles of manufacturing, lean manufacturing, etc., etc. Lots of people are using that philosophy now and still move on. Some say it works for the leather industry, some say it doesn't. I don't know. We then tried to eliminate the magic associated with dyeing. We used to have a guy that used to run the dyeing, and he had a pocket full of green dye and he had a pocket full of red dye. And when he was fiddling with the process, when he was drying a piece of leather to check the shade, he'd be putting a little bit of this in, a little bit of that in, and then running around and checking. And we used to have processes that were running for sort of 2 days sometimes, we just couldn't get the colour right. Because the guy went off shift, the next guy came in, he was colour-blind, and it all reversed, and it was a nightmare. So we tried to take that out. So what we do now is a blind dyeing, again, taken from the textile industry. You put the process in, you put the leather in, you run it, you take it out, you check what colour it is. If it's wrong, you change the process, put it back into work. If it's right, you just carry on. And if you like, our right first time figure for pre that period was probably about, I don't know, 20%, if measure it. After that, bear in mind we're making aniline dyed leathers only, no finishing, typically speaking. After that period, we were running up around about 87 to 90% of that first time, which is pretty good. In 2000, Leeds and Charles Paisley achieved 14,001 accreditation, and that was also followed by Leeds taking more control of the abattoirs that they were being supplied by. We actually put employees into the abattoirs to look after the quality of the chilled hides we were taking out. I think that started by Whitebones, I believe, but it was nonetheless an important aspect of controlling our raw material. Pittards maintained its lead as the #1 supplier of technically advanced performance leathers of many market segments, predominantly the military. We also brought out products such as R-Tan, which was a veg tan product from Leeds, went into bags for Louis Vuitton and people like that, Coach. They also brought out Armor-Tan, an abrasion-resistant tannage that had opportunity and benefits in motorcycle leathers or any heavy-duty glove leather, to be honest with you. Parados was another product that produces a chemical and acid and fuel-resistant leather, again used for military service, etc., etc. We also brought out what was called SIG leather, which was custom image generation, which will produce fashion effects or camouflage, more to the point, which we're using, and we're selling that to some of the military companies. That incorporates not only a visual camouflage, but it also incorporates infrared camouflage as well, such that if you're 1,000 yards away, hidden in some bushes, and somebody's got their infrared scopes on, you won't get seen, or you say your gloves won't get seen, so your fingers will get shot over the rest of it. Anyway, so that's that. The overseas technical development continued working over in Ethiopia. In about 2004, the tannery that we specifically were getting closer and closer with, which was Ethiopian Tannery Share Company, ETSC, they also achieved ISO 14001, which I believe was pretty important at that point in time. Yeovil saw more changes. John W. Pittard retired, Charles Paisley and Son, the last of the raw material divisions closed. Kingham, I think, closed the year before. And Leeds introduced the mechanised equipment that you saw a little bit earlier. Some of the pickle drums and pickle fleshing was highly automated around that time. They also were working on flesh to fuel processing, which was to try and use the fleshings, turn them into tallow, and also trying to generate energy from that as well, which they eventually perfected. We went into 2006, and which was a bit of a terrible year. The FSA introduced the odd ruling that the FRS 17 part of their regulations, such that pension deficits should go on balance sheet, and as a result, because we'd taken on an awful lot of people previously and also an awful lot of their pension requirement, that was a heavy burden around our neck. And when FRS 17 came out, it meant that, technically speaking, we had a big problem. So we managed to go through what's called CBA, or a company voluntary arrangement, which is where it's technically a paper insolvency, where we had to speak to the creditors of the business at the time and agree and move on. That allowed us to put the pensions scheme into the PPF, Pension Protection Fund, and we can pretty well wash our hands of that. So that's been looked after by the government, which is good. Scary time though, because that was not clever. In and around that time also, just at the end of 2005, we also had to make the decision to close Leeds factory, which was again disappointing. We moved most of the production down to Yeovil, and some of the production under license to Che Chang company in Taiwan. Again, change of mood. That was an interesting philosophy and a different change. Putting bovine into Yeovil, can't do that. It's impossible. We had to move 60% of the machinery in Yeovil to allow us to fit some of the machines that we could produce bovine on. Very, very difficult. But all the while, we didn't lose any production either at the Yeovil plant or the Leeds plant while that was going on. And now we've got somebody overseas, actually closer to some of our customers now, producing some of our product under license. And that gives benefit when people are trying to keep the costs down. They don't really want to be buying leathers in Yeovil, exporting it all the way over to China to be made into shoes or whatever, and then export it all the way back over to the States. So smart move the leathers over to China direction, in the Far East and Taiwan, get it made there. It's a short hop over to China. It reduces the cost of transportation quite significantly. But more importantly, reduces the lead time between order generation and shipping it into the customer. So that was a good move. These are hair sheep. You can see at the top, they're slightly woolly, but they look more like goats. And actually, it's very, very hard to tell the difference between a goat and a sheep. The easiest way of doing it, goats' tails go up, and sheep tails go down, for a little, very interesting fact. Quite fun facts. And if you look, you'll see that. All right, so if you want to know the difference between goats and sheep. Okay, so rationalisation of the group was a significant driver around about that time. UK leather industry was in decline. Export leathers had halved during that period, or the value had halved during that period, so we were in a great deal of trouble in around the middle 80s. Also, we had increased competition from overseas. Because the manufacturing had gone overseas, people were starting to produce overseas. Again, shortening that time between manufacturing the product, glove of leather, and the guys that are actually making the articles. So we then started having problems with that. So quite a difficult time. With so much against Pittards, to be honest with you, the guys in the factory in and around that time and their determination helped us get through the CVA period. Apart from the guys that actually manoeuvred their way through that process, that was quite a significant test to the loyalty of employees, but also the creditors and the shareholders as well, to be honest with you, the customers. In recognition of these rising costs, we decided to change our strategy. We wanted to change our strategy and generate more lucrative revenue streams. Well, how do we do that? We're making gloving leather, technically speaking, and we're also making some shoe and some saddlery leathers. What else can we do? Well, we opened a shop, and we also started looking into the raw material side of things more in depth. And then we actually started the management contract of Ethiopian Tannery in around about 2005, I think it was, for a 5-year period. We're managing that tannery for the government, essentially. Bovine production maximised in Yeovil, and in 2007 I think we produced the biggest volume of leather that site's ever produced. It's about 20 million square feet in a year. So massive production through that period, despite all the upheaval. So again, a bit of a test for us all. We had to contend with BSE as well. I can't remember what that date was now, but some pretty terrible things. 2007 saw foot and mouth disease affect bovine hide market, also our farmers. We had mastered bovine production in Yeovil, something that people didn't really believe that we'd do. And in addition, we started to examine in earnest the retail opportunities, and we opened the shop on the Yeovil site. We also started investing in helping the Ethiopian government and the guys from ETSC develop their factory as well, and that's a new Cartigliano vacuum dryer going in not too long ago. And we've also got a couple of our guys teaching over there as well, letting them, getting them to understand how we produce in Yeovil, getting them to do the same in Ethiopia as well. Very important. We also have a partnership with Yarwood Leathers to help produce lightweight upholstery leathers. And then in 2008 we purchased Dainton Hathaway, which is a small leather goods manufacturing unit. So we started not only looking at retail, we also started moving up the supply chains and started to produce things. Again, getting closer to retail gives us an opportunity to get more value out of our revenue stream. Most of the profit, to be honest with you, on most goods goes on right at the end, which is disappointing for all of us as tanners. You don't get to see much of the money, typically speaking. It's not strictly always true. We then broken free from being this small skin glove manufacturer. We were doing bovine, we just started doing hair on as well. We've got a manufacturing plant that produces product like this, not only from Pittards leathers, mind you. This is some other products from some of you guys perhaps, bridal leathers, etc., etc. We carried on working on the ETSC project, helped them in the local vicinity, in the community, making sure we supported their local community, which was building in their area as well, to the point where we helped build the school. We also helped subsidise that. We're also looking after some of the, we have a health clinic over there, so we're looking after family planning, treatment of malaria, amongst other diseases. And I guess some of that is one of the reasons why we achieved Tannery of the Year award in 2009 this year through World Leather. It's possibly some of the reason for that, don't know. At the time of writing, Pittards are in advanced dialogue with the government of Ethiopia about the future ownership of ETSC, so I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. These are some of the final products that we're producing still. That's cufflink boxes. Okay, so what's going on? Extremely weak dollar reached new depths in October 2008, causing generally any UK exporters serious problems. Add that to the rapid turnaround in early 2009, caused even more headaches. Add to that the recession, not a very good place to be. So what do? Well, we diversified. We actually expanded, if you like. We moved into, as I say, extending the supply chain. We looked at retail, and we bought a company that can manufacture finished goods, so we can get more revenue from our productions, which is pretty good. With that, we actually diversified in manufacturing leathers, not only in Yeovil site, but also Ethiopia and also in Taiwan, to the point where if we want to, we can move, within reason, any product from any of those locations to another location. So we can produce the same product in Yeovil as we can in Ethiopia, as we can in Taiwan, if we choose to. Again, it's not strictly speaking everything, but certainly certain products we can move that, if we so wish. So when when the circumstances arise and we want to get some product quickly to China, we can do, because we'll make it out of Taiwan. If the dollar goes the other way, or the pound goes the other way, then we can move it back to the UK manufacturing plant, which is what we've done just a minute ago. Okay, enough of that. So that's what's happened. We're also fairly agile, and we can move around and we can do a lot of things. The skilled guys that are working with us will move across overseas, help train people, move back again, which is pretty useful. All right, last couple of slides now. Summarise. That's what happened to the employee count. It's dropped off a cliff, unfortunately, just recently. It's down to around about 192, I think it is at the moment, just on 2 sites. Excuse me, that's Danes and Hathaway and Yeovil. Crazy. This is what we've done really to the supply chain. So early on we were doing fellmongering in the red, rather than centre to it, up until 1932. It changed when we bought the dye house. We moved into dyeing between 1932 and 1980. Nothing changed between those 2 dates. We then moved into controlling raw material, both bovine and raw skins, in between 80 and 2007. And then 2007 to now, we started going into article manufacture, retail, and beyond, really, consumers. Now, how far we get down that route, I don't know. That's the direction we're going. This is just to try and explain what I was saying about ability. We can produce a range of different products in most, not all sites, and that's still developing. Air-on is quite an interesting one. We've really just started doing that, and that's quite an interesting process. Future developments. Well, technical innovation has been something that we've always continued with. Consistent quality production is an important aspect, and we'll carry on. Manufacturing agility, as I've said, are very important. But also things like, what's our unique selling point? What we're giving to the customers. That's going to change from different customers, and it's going to move through the years as well. We don't know what's important. What we know about is we won't be afraid of change. Gone through an awful lot of change in the last probably 5-10 years or so. So now we know change. We're not frightened of it. To be honest with you, we've got to change. And with that, we also have an evolving strategy. We'll roll with the punches that are given to us. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In hindsight, the merge with Garner Booth, was it a good idea? Was it a bad idea? I don't know. If we hadn't have done it, maybe the Pittards name had disappeared. We did do it, and we're here now still. Don't know. Okay, a couple of observations as well. Leather is a great leveller, isn't it? I mean, our business is timeless. It knows no boundaries, as you can see, cultural or physical, with time. It's endlessly inspiring. What are we going to come up with next with regards to fashion? Or let's have a look at what we did 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, and then change it slightly and resell it, because that's probably what he's going to do as well. Rags to riches, riches to rags. I was told a joke. An old tanner had a son, and the son said, "Dad, how do I make £1 million in the tannery industry?" And he turned around and said, "Son, start with 10 million. That's probably now. Back then it was a little bit easier to make more money. Don't know. Also, basic use to space age. We had fur clothing really early on, and now we're producing innovative camouflage that will hide you even whether you're warm or not. Unbelievable. Also, functional, essential shoes, clothing again, to the ultimate accessory. The Louis Vuitton bag for £3,000 or whatever it is, probably more than that nowadays. However, I'm told that philosophy of owning brands is changing now. People don't want to spend, or don't want to be seen spending an awful lot of money on product. They're starting to go back to the more functional, which is an interesting concept. Whether it's actually hitting out there yet, but I believe people are looking at not spending so much money on expensive kit. We'll see. That's it really. Thanks goes to people up there. Thank you.